Yo, what's up, people? So today we're back at it with another Zentangle. Today we're working on Zentangle number 4. And as always, you're going to need your sketchbook or some paper to draw on. You're going to need a pencil and a pen and or some kind of marker that are in black. Today I got 3 new patterns for us, and we're just going to jump right on in it. So before we get started, as always, I want to remind you guys how to set up one of these Zentangle cards. All right. And what you're going to go off and do is you're going to mark 4 corners, right? Like a square. And these 4 corners are going to be boundaries for you guys to work in. Once you have your 4 corners drawn, you're going to connect those corners like a box with your pencil. All right. And overdoing this, you can work a little outside of these lines. You can add loops in. It's really up to you. It's however you decide to do it. I like to imagine this like a piece of string being laid down. All right. Once you have your perimeters set with your pencil, you're going to go in and find perimeters on the inside of your card. And again, I like to think of this as a piece of string being laid down over the card, and this separates our square into smaller pieces. And it is within these smaller pieces that we're going to apply not only the patterns we learned today, but hopefully some of the previous patterns that we've learned. All right. Now, to get started, I'm going to show you guys some of the new patterns for today. And we're going to start with this one called Shattuck. And Shattuck is a pretty cool one. I like to think of this one almost as a fan meets fish scales a little bit. And it works pretty simply. So imagine we have a space, and it really doesn't matter the size of the space. I'll go a little bigger just for ease here. The great thing about drawing with pencil, I can always erase it. All right. Now, with the Shattuck design, we have a space that we're going to fill in. And we're going to start by adding these lines. All right. And I like to think of these as like extrusions or like fingers, or like the thin lines within a webbing or even a fin. And right, and it's okay if there's some size variation within my extrusions. And if I'm not happy with it, I can always fix it just by erasing and starting over. And again, that's kind of the magic of the pencil. All right, all right. So you kind of see how I say it's kind of like a fish fin a little bit. Now, once I have this properly spaced out, I'm going to move over to my pen, and I'm going to go and draw these in. And I want to have like a nice, good space that I'm working with. A lot of times we try to draw too small, and when we do that, we end up making it very difficult on ourselves when we go in to add value or to add small details. And that's why you want to make your card, 4.5 to 5 inches. Gives you plenty of room to work with. All right. Again, pretty close here. Okay. Now, the next part of this design is to, actually, I can go and erase my pencil lines. I'm going to lightly erase this outside line. That's going to let me know where to stop, but just so lightly. I can still see it just a little bit. The next step here is I'm going to create this series of kind of overarching pathways. And you can do this kind of like a rainbow so that it curves, or you could do it straight, almost like a zigzag. And I'm going to turn my card a little bit as I do this. So the first one's kind of super tight. And then I'm going to turn my paper and I'm going to work from that exact same point there. Turn my paper, and I'm doing these like curves. You can kind of see it as I'm getting. Now you may get to this point and be like, okay, but what do I do with this last little bit here? And that's easy. We're gonna kind of like find one and kind of make it fit in this space. So I can either go full arch, or I like to leave it just a little gap there. That way it looks like it's like hiding behind it. Right, I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit for you guys. And I'm gonna do one more. And for this one, I'm just gonna jump straight in with the pen. And I'm gonna mimic the one I already have here, all right? So you can imagine this as like a zigzag line, all right? So I'm gonna start with a curve like this and put some smaller curved lines in it. These are parallel. Then I'm gonna switch a different direction, bring a curve this way, change those lines, bring a curve this way, bring a curve this way. Right, then I get to this almost perfect, well actually that one's pretty good there on the end where it just ends so, but if I want to I can always add a little section there. Alright, now you're going to do this for all of your cards. If there's space up here towards the top, that is okay. And to shade these, it's almost like imagining these little protrusions or extrusions are kind of raised off the ground a bit. So what I like to do is I like to come in with my graphite and I like to kind of shade in against these lines, right? And then I'll pull that out a bit with my finger or a blending stump, right? And then kind of once I pull that graphite out a bit, I'm going to come in and I'm going to shade a little darker right next to that line again. And this is just going to help me create this look of depth here, all right? So if you're not a fan of the thicker line, you can always try a thinner line weight by using more of a pen as opposed to a marker. But this is Shattuck. It's a pretty cool pattern. It's very simple. Let me draw this zigzag line in here for you guys so you can see it. And it opens itself up to some variety if this is one you like. You know, you could also shade in these extrusions as well. And always, 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 if you're not super comfortable jumping in with a marker first try, I highly recommend pencil because it's a great way to get comfortable. It's a great way to add practice. Again, come in here with my graphite. I'm going to smear it out with my fingers. Right, like that. Right, then I'm going to come in back with my graphite. I'm going to darken up right along this edge. And this is going to be nice. Right, and have this idea that this kind of is casting a shadow. All right. Now, once you've seen this and you're kind of comfortable with the idea here, you're going to go back into your card. You're going to find a space that you like, and you're going to draw in this pattern. And it can go any direction you wish, all right? But that is Shattuck, our first one for day 4. Okay. The next one for day 4 is Nipa, and Nipa is one of my favorite patterns. It is like up at the top, even though, you know, there are 30 days of these. This one's kind of remained one of my favorites. So again, I'm going to draw a space that we're kind of working in here on my example card. All right. Now, for Nipa, what we're going to do is we're going to make a series of circles that kind of exist in our space. And I like to think of these as bubbles almost. And if you would like to do these by hand, you can. If you have an item like a circle drawer, you can do that too. Make sure you have different sizes. That would really help. I'm going to use a circle drawer, as this is my class example. So it's going to come in. I want some different sizes of circles too. Try to do these quickly. And get some bigger ones in here. I can let some run off the edge. if I like, almost like a cheese. All right, I'm pretty happy with this. All right, so this is these are little bubbles we're gonna do. I know I said I'm happy. I lied. All right. Once I have my circles drawn in, I got them where I want them. I definitely want to go over with them in marker, and this is gonna kind of like set them in. And I say marker, but this could be pen. I'm a big fan of like using a circle drawer to draw something or a ruler to draw something and then trying to freehand over it as a way to really practice that shape and getting my hand used to making that shape. If I mess up a little bit, that's okay. Not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. Right, I can either come in and fix it or I can just leave it alone and that's okay too. Notice I'm leaving that line around the outside. I did the same for our Shattuck. Like I have a pencil line there, and I worked right up to it, and then it kind of disappears. So I'm gonna let the next steps kind of define my edges here. Okay. Boom. Okay. All right. This is the time I like to go in and erase things, um, just for ease of cleanup. But you'll notice I'm staying away from that one I just finished coloring on, just because I want to make sure it's nice and dry before I do my next steps. Okay. All right. So Nipa, we have our circles, our little bubbles. We're going to come in and we're going to draw a really interesting zigzag line. And this first line, I want you to notice there's nothing that cuts in front of it. So I'm just going to pick a path and I'm going to kind of like wiggle my way through my drawing here. All right. And the wiggly and squiggly, the better. All right. Just like that. All right. Now I'm going to choose a distance, a space, and I'm going to kind of create a line that's parallel to this. It can be just as wiggly and squiggly, and it's just going to kind of go with the flow. I'm not going to try to squeeze it at all, like making it come closer. It might look like it in a few places, but that's not my intention. For this new line, if it runs into a circle or a bubble, it's going to go behind it. Right here, boom. See, I pick my pin up, and then I'm going to come back. All right, here again, hits the edge. That's okay. Now, the wider you make this, the easier it is to fill the space. But if you make it too wide, you kind of lose the optical illusion that's going to happen here in just a second. But this is a really cool way, a really cool pattern. I'm just very much going with the flow here. This is one of those patterns. Kind of lost my wiggle here, so I'm going to kind of fake a wiggle. Yeah, there we go. All right, now I have the other side to deal with. So you see this first line, totally uninterrupted, right? and then you get to the point where all of these others are going behind these shapes. Oop. Did not mean to get too close there. I'm more comfortable drawing with it being on this side, just so I can make sure I'm not hitting these lines. I could switch to left-handed, but the light's not set up for that. Also, it's really cool this pattern is like wiggly, because it like allows it to not be so perfect. Alright, gonna try to wrap this one up. Might finish the rest of this in a moment, but I want to show you the next steps here. Alright, so for every one of these little circles we have, we're gonna try to shade them so they look three-dimensional. And to do this, we have to imagine there's a light source. And for mine, I'm gonna say the light source is coming down like this, kind of at these little bobbles, these little circles. Alright, and this is the way this works. I'm gonna shade in the circle. I'm gonna start on the edge here. Alright, and then I'm gonna smear this up so that it fills quite a bit of the circle, but I want to leave a nice kind of bald spot right there, okay, because that's where the light's hitting it. Now, because I kind of shaded that in a bit, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to darken. So if I said the light's coming this way, I'm going to darken the area furthest away, right? And this would be like under, right? So it's like casting a shadow, all right? So now the sphere, it's no longer a circle, it's a sphere because I shaded it in, is looking pretty all right. But I'm missing one little step, and that is cast a shadow. So the area where I did the dark, I'm going to come out, I'm going to add a little graphite on the outside. I'm going to smear it a little bit out, right, to kind of mimic a half circle there. And then kind of right where I did that darker value, I'm going to come in and just shade that just a little bit, right? And now, if you look at this, it looks like it's three-dimensional sitting on top of this crazy zigzag background or table. I'll do one more, a smaller one. Light's coming this way. Adding a little gray, smearing it with my thumb or my finger. Right? Want to leave a nice, a little white area to show that that's where the light is hitting. Gonna come in, gonna shade where the less light is hitting it because of where it's coming. Right? Then I'm gonna put a little graphite on the outside. Right? Pull it out a little bit so that it's kind of like a half circle. Then the last step is to come in and right where I put that dark before, I'm gonna put right on the outside just to show that there's a nice cast shadow. Right? Pretty cool, right? I really love this one. And if you shade these things so they look three-dimensional, the cooler this one looks. You can kind of see here. All right. So I'll finish this one later, but I think that's enough for you to get the idea for what this card is all about. All right. So you're going to take this pattern. You're going to go into your journal. You're going to find a space for it, and you're going to draw it in. So we've got 2 so far today, Shattuck and Nipa. All right. All right. And the last one, Genqual, this one is really simple. It kind of goes back to a lot of the ones we've had in the past. It is a checkerboard, but it's zigzag. So it kind of mixes like a Knight's Bridge with a static pattern, and it's pretty interesting, right? So as always, I'm going to have a little space here, right, that this is going to fill in, okay? Excuse me. All right. So to do this, I have curved lines here, but it doesn't have to be. It can be any kind of line. You're just going to make sure you draw them so that they're parallel with one another. So this is my space I'm working on my card here. I've got my first line going like this, right? Kind of like these lines here. And I'm going to try to keep it equidistant apart and parallel with one another. Okay, so whatever distance is there, I'm going to try to mimic as I'm filling the rest of this area in. It's a subtle thing, but it does make a difference. All right. Think of like a waffle fry or like a potato chip when I look at this. Okay. Now, from here, we're going to make a zigzag line, right? That starts one, goes down, then comes back up, then goes down, then comes back up, okay? And this is going to be the first part of our pattern happening here, okay? So let's see here. I'm going to go down. I'm going to come up, go down, and then it's going to stop. So kind of like I was saying earlier, I have this nice pencil edge, but I'm just going to let my line stop at that pencil edge, and that's going to define this space. I know for my visual aid here, I definitely have lines drawn, but that's just for you to know that, hey, that's what I was doing with a pencil. So you can see it a lot better. Now, the spacing I used here in between these to make these ridges, I'm going to try to use the same kind of spacing as I go back and forth, and I'm going to mimic these lines. So when I say mimic, I'm going to kind of copy them, but I'm going to come up some. This is a random tidbit, but this up-down pattern is called a chevron. Kind of like the car parts company, they use a V, because that is what that's called. Right, and I'm going to let things run off the page here, as you see. And I know I move my card around quite a bit when I work. And that's really just, you got to be comfortable drawing your lines. And I'm going to let things run off the page when they need to, right? Now when it comes to the next steps here, it's not super difficult. We are just going to fill it in like it's a checkerboard, even though it's a zigzaggy checkerboard. There's something very satisfying about this. I felt the same way with the static pattern though. There's something very satisfying. Alright, so there's my pattern, nice and done. It's at this point that I like to go in and make sure that any of my pencil lines are cleaned up. Right, just so I know I have my boundaries, they're ready to go. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to shade in every other block, like I said, like a checkerboard. Let's just pick an area here. So if I pick an area here, I can go along this line and I can fill in every other one. So this one, skip. Skip. And if you look, I got a little section right there. I want to make sure that I fill that in as well, right? So now, since it's an alternating pattern, right, it'll be every other one. So left that one open, fill in this one, skip this one, fill it in. Now this one, it's kind of got an open end here, and that's okay. Boom, boom. Right? So you see how it's kind of every other section. Fill in a couple more of these, and I'll show you how to shade this guy. And then, you know, then I can't wait to see what you guys come up with here. Super excited. Right, so I worked this way, now I can work back the other way. But for the purposes of kind of time, my time and yours, I'm going to go in and show you how to shade this guy. It's pretty simple. It's a little different than the static though. So if you'll look here on my little example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide like, all right, so these are my ups right here. Kind of this one is raised, and then this one would be my downs. It's a lower one, right? But if I flip my card, it could be opposite. It's dependent on how you're looking at it. All right. So I'm gonna go with my downs. All right. So let's see. I'll say this one is an up, so this is a down. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some graphite right along the edge here on both sides. Okay. Then I'm gonna pull that graphite out with my fingers. So it fills up about half of that space, maybe a little more. Alright, got here graphite there. Then, once I kind of smear that out a bit, I'm going to come back in with my graphite again, and I'm just going to go along that edge just a little bit to darken it up some, just to show that there's a little bit of shadow, kind of right there. So that is how you would shade it, and you would do that so it would be here, and then it would skip over this one, and then it would be back on this side over here, right? Because that would be every other one. So put some graphite down on both sides, right? Smear them out with my finger so that it covers a bit of the space here. All right. All right. Then I'm going to come back in with my pencil, and I'm going to add darkness right around that edge there. All right. So not too shabby, right? And I'm going to do that over my entire space. So once you have this kind of understood, you're going to go back in to your card, pick another space, kind of fill it in with this new pattern, right? That's 3 that we learned today. And hopefully your card has some extra room for more than 3 patterns. And you can go back and visit some of the patterns we did in previous days to fill up your card. Well, I hope that was interesting, and I'll catch you guys next time.